Hey, Sully, how are you?
Got your 3 Diet Cokes in? You ready to rock?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I thought you forgot about me for a while.
No, we ran a little bit long with Lonnie L. Sykes, Kayla Sykes' mom, talking about the Kiss Cancer Goodbye tournament, so I wanted to give her enough amount of time to talk about her aunt who had passed away from cancer and all that stuff. So
completely understand.
Yeah, I figured you'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
And you know Kayla, outstanding young player for ACIT, and what a great young lady. So it was really neat to talk to her mom and how this tournament came about. So it's a really cool thing they're trying to do there at ACIT.
Right, and ACIT off to a good start, an American division contender. You had a tough loss to Atlantic City the other night, but obviously them, Millville, Atlantic City among the top teams, and even an Egg Harbor Township team that's kind of showed some promise there. So that girls' American division in the Cape Atlantic League, is kind of a division on the rise there.
And in the national, big showdown coming up on the 24th when you're talking about Mainland and Ocean City, both undefeated. How do you see that division playing out? I mean, it almost seems like Mainland needs to get over that mental hurdle of Ocean City. They've always kind of it seems to me had a little bit of an intimidation factor. Maybe they won't come out and say that, but Ocean City's just been so good in the playoffs and in these big games. Coach Paul Baruffi just knows how to get those girls how to play well in big games. So this could be a really pivotal game, confidence-wise, for the Mustangs.
Yeah, I mean, both those teams sort of headed on the proverbial collision course, both of them undefeated. I think the Mainland girls right now with, Kylie Watson are playing really, really well. They had a big weekend last weekend. They beat Gloucester Catholic in double overtime at the Seagull Classic. The very next day, they go up play at the Blue Star Invitational up at Jefferson in Philadelphia, and they beat a very good Paul the 16th. Then they come back down to the Cape Atlantic League, and they really handle Middle Township and Holy Spirit, 2 quality programs. I think they're 10-0. We have them number 1 in our Press Elite 11 ranking right now. I think Mainland is playing really, really well. On the flip side, you've got an Ocean City team that's also playing really well, a team that I believe returned just 1 starter off last season's team that won the Cape Atlantic League, went to a state final. But they've got some kids really stepping up. Chief among them, Danielle Donahue. I kind of wrote a story about her, after their win over Lenape at the Seagull Classic last Sunday. Everybody kind of wondered, with Grace Sacco gone, who was going to dribble the ball up court for Ocean City after Grace did it so well for 4 straight years. Well, Danielle Donahue's kind of stepped in there and, without almost skipping a beat, and has really established herself as one of the top players in the Cape Atlantic League. So you got 2 rivals, Ocean City and Mainland, both undefeated at this point. And I would say they're games against each other. I think they play on the 24th, and I think they play then, 2 weeks later or a week later in the Battle by the Bay. So, those games are among the most anticipated of the regular season so far.
Mike, have you heard anything about the Battle by the Bay? I know Atlantic City's had some trouble with their gym with some flooding during that recent storm. The girls had to play at MLK School Complex last night. What's going on with that? Have they made any kind of contingency plans, or do you think the gym will be ready by then?
I think it's up in the air at this point. I mean, I've kind of asked around a lot. I haven't heard anything definitive yet. You hear that they might be looking at some alternative sites. Maybe they're looking into trying to get the gym floor fixed by the time of the Battle by the Bay. As for now, both the Atlantic City boys and girls basketball teams are playing their home games at the Martin Luther King Jr. Complex, which sits about 200 to 250 people. So that's going to be their home for now. We'll see when the playoffs come. Certainly the Atlantic City boys would need a bigger venue for the playoffs. So we'll see what's happening. I think the school district is still in the midst of dealing with the situation, and there's been no definitive, plans about the Battle by the Bay, whether they're, going to try to move the games to another location or, nothing definitive yet.
Yeah, I wonder if they might consider Boardwalk Hall, something like that.
Yeah, I know Boardwalk Hall might be a little big for it. I was talking the other night with Tom Williams. I'd love to just see one. I understand that a high school basketball crowd of 2,000 people might look empty in Boardwalk Hall, but I'd just like to see one. We have all these great high school events, showcase events now. I'd like to see one in Boardwalk Hall just to sort of soak up the atmosphere, see what it looks like. See if it could be a success. I think you need a really high-powered game to draw some people in there, but it's such a great facility. And, I'd like to see just one game in there. I know the Seagull Classic has talked a little bit about maybe one day their goal moving back into Boardwalk Hall or something for their event. But I'd just like to see one. I just think it'd be neat, to get on the boardwalk, feel the wind whip in your face, as you walk down the boardwalk into the arena and stuff like that, and see what it looks like, and just give kids an opportunity to play in a setting like that. So I would like to see, one of these showcase events, just one, see if it works, go into Boardwalk Hall.
Were you cranking up some Bruce Springsteen last night?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Always.
Wind whipping down the boardwalk.
Right, exactly.
Oh man! So what's going on, man? We're kind of getting into the juicy part of the high school basketball season. As the second week of January, you're starting to see some of these really good conference clashes coming up. Monday, St. Augustine down at Wildwood Catholic. That should be a great game. So you're starting to see these real, marquee games against the top two teams in each conference. How do you see things shaking out over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think you hit on it right there. We're about a third of the way through right now. Most teams have played between 7 and 10 games, which puts you about a third of the way through. And you're seeing those favorites kind of emerge. Like in the Cape Atlantic League boys, you see Atlantic City with their win over St. Augustine. They're kind of the team to beat in the American division. Lower Cape May last night, I was there for Ocean City, Lower Cape May. You can read that in the press today and online at pressofac.com. Lower gets 16 points, 8 assists from Pat Holden, and some hot shooting from Zach Cerasi, Pat Moore, and the freshman Angela. And then they beat Ocean City 55-40. So now they're tied for the division lead with Holy Spirit, which got a nice win over Mainland. And then last night you mentioned Wildwood Catholic, who's really playing, I think, as well as anybody in South Jersey right now. They beat a good Pleasantville team by double digits. Caleb Fields with 20. I think Charles Fields, his brother, had 20 also. So Wildwood Catholic kind of establishing itself as the team to beat in that United division. And on the girls' flip side, the Millville girls, Alexis Harrison had a big game last night. They beat Egg Harbor Township. They're kind of the team to beat in that American division. We've talked before, Ocean City and Mainland on that collision course in the national division. And right now it looks like Wildwood Catholic and Middle Township, the teams to beat in that United division. So we're about a third way through, and sort of the teams, you can see the races beginning to develop, and some teams, have a step or two in front as far as getting bids to that Cape Atlantic League tournament. We're talking with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. And Mike, you mentioned the Cal tournament, and I think on the boys' side, that could be a really interesting first round. You talk about a team like Lower Cape May that's been playing well. They could step up and get a first round upset. If Pleasantville makes it in there, they could do some damage in a round or two and maybe even make it to the semis. So there's a lot of interesting matchups that could play out in that first round. So it's not, obviously Atlantic City and St. Augustine are the cream of the crop right now, and Wildwood Catholic, you can throw them in the mix. But those 4 through 8 spots are really going to be exciting to see who makes it in there, and those first round games could be. You might not be surprised to see some crazy things happen that first round. Yeah, there's a lot of depth on the Cape Atlantic League boys side. I mean, let's not forget about Millville with Rhinell Lawrence.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a tough loss to Pleasantville earlier this week, but they're 8-2 or 7-2 or whatever they are, so they're another team. But you're exactly right; those games are going to be interesting to watch. You hit upon the big three. The big three are Atlantic City, Wildwood Catholic, and St. Augustine. So it would be interesting to see if one of those teams can get knocked off in the first round of the tournament. But I just think right now, Atlantic City, Wildwood Catholic, and St. Augustine are maybe a step or two ahead of the other, the next 4 or 5 teams in the Cape Atlantic League. That doesn't mean that the next 4 or 5 teams aren't good. I think that just says something about just how good Atlantic City, Wildwood Catholic, and St. Augustine are this season. Mike, what do you think these transfers becoming eligible on Monday will do for some of these teams? Atlantic City boys have a guy who's 6'8" coming in from Vineland. The girls obviously have been waiting for 30 days to get Tahira Howard and Siani Red Howard in there in that lineup, which has some pretty good young players. Could these transfers make that big of a difference in the conference races? Well, I think especially in the case of Atlantic City girls, yeah. I mean, they're going to get 2 very good players. I think Tahira Howard's one of the best players in the league. They're going to get 2 very good players, and they've kind of, they got a big win over ACIT the other night, so they're kind of right there as far as the division race. I believe the Atlantic City girls and Millville girls play this week on the 17th, so the transfers will be eligible. So that'll be an interesting game there. I think the transfer from Violin for Atlantic City, gives Atlantic City some size inside, and he's a guy who's going to get them a couple of putbacks and get them, kind of 8 to 10 points a game, which, could get the Vikings a big win, especially with, David Aikens sort of leaving that program to go to the Connecticut prep school, so they've got to replace him. So T can certainly help out with that. I think the interesting thing to watch is, it's not like flipping a light switch, though. I mean,
right.
The transfers haven't played a game in 30 days. They're going to have to, teams used to playing one way. They're going to have to adjust, sort of feel their way in. So we'll be interested to see if there's any adjustment period for these kids. So it's not as easy as, okay, we're going to throw these kids on the floor and all of a sudden we're going to be 20% better, 30% better, 50% better. There is an adjustment period.
Oh, you still there, Mike? We might have lost McGarry. You there, Mike? Oh, looks like the call dropped, Cole. Oh, you still there? We're having some connection. We're having some connection issues.
Oh, okay. I'm still here. Maybe I moved to a place in the building that that got blocked out a little bit.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, the real question will be, can these teams turn it on in February after getting some experience with the new lineups the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think that's it. I think you look to, right now you're playing these games, and these are the games that really count. It's kind of the part of the season where you got to grind through. Sometimes games in February, attract more attention, but this is where the teams sort of put themselves in position to, either make the Cape Atlantic League tournament, put themselves in position to get power points, to get a high seed in the state tournament. So you're kind of grinding your way through the season right now and looking to peak, when it comes tournament time in September. But there's, these games now kind of determine, where you're seated, where you play in the playoffs. And that's a big difference. A home game in the playoffs can make the difference between advancing and going home early.
Good stuff, as always. Mike, what do you got on tap for this weekend?
We're headed in a little bit, headed over to Voorhees. I think the Atlantic City boys play at Eastern today at noon. And then, of course, Monday we'll be headed down to Wildwood, North Wildwood there for the big St. Augustine Wildwood Catholic game. Wildwood Catholic's tiny gym down there will be jam-packed. So I think I'm leaving for that game in about 5 minutes and camping out overnight and having some pizza sent to me in the Wildwood Catholic gym. So
like Krzyzewskiville, you got to get there a day early.
Exactly. So that'll be a big game on Monday night at 7 o'clock. So those two games I'm looking forward to, and really looking forward to the Wildwood Catholic St. Augustine game Monday night.
Great stuff, as always, Mike. We appreciate it. We'll check in with you next week, and we'll start breaking down how the Cape Atlantic League tournaments are shaking out.
All right, Sully. Looking forward to it. Talk to you later.
Thanks, bud.
All right, bye-bye.
That was Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. Check